Hi there, post-harvest friends, and welcome to our series on the post-harvest physiology and handling of fresh fruit, vegetables, and cut flowers, presented to you by the Postharvest Academy. My name is Charles Whitehead, and I'm your post-harvest professor, helping you to better understand how to handle fresh fruit, vegetables, and cut flowers after harvest. In part 3 of this series, we are going to look at the anatomical and cytological complexity of fresh fruits, vegetables, and cut flowers. Fruit, vegetables, and ornamentals are living plant organs, and plant organs consist of many different tissues. Here we have a cross-section through part of an avocado fruit showing a variety of different fruit tissues. These include the epidermis, the sclerenchyma, the parenchyma, and the lenticel, which we have discussed before. This is a cross-section through the vascular tissue or a vein in an avocado fruit. And we can see here the xylem tissue that transports water and minerals from the soil root interface through the plant, and the phloem tissue that translocates water and products of photosynthesis from the leaves to other plant organs such as the fruit. This is a longitudinal section through the avocado fruit vein showing the spiral thickening in the walls of the xylem vessels through which water and dissolved compounds are transported. Here we have a cross-section through a banana leaf showing different tissues such as the upper epidermis, the hypodermis, the palisade parenchyma that is responsible for most of the photosynthesis. We have the vascular system with the xylem and the phloem, and we have sclerenchymatic tissue that supports the leaf. We have spongy parenchyma with large air spaces, and we have specialized tissues such as latifer cells, which contains the latex of the leaf. This is a cross-section through a protea leaf vein, and we can see here the xylem tissue, the phloem tissue, the vascular cambium tissue, and then tannin cells, as well as the parenchyma tissue and the palisade parenchyma. One thing that all of these tissues have in common is that they all consist of cells. This is a generalized plant cell, and we can see that the cell is surrounded by a cell wall. Inside the cell wall, we find the cytosol that is surrounded by a membrane, a thin membrane, known as the plasma lemma, or the cell membrane that controls the movement of substances in and out the cell. Inside the cytosol, we find a number of different components, such as the mitochondria, which is a membrane-surrounded organelle that is responsible for respiration. The vacuole is also a membrane-bound structure that contains water and dissolved substances in the water, and it's surrounded by a membrane known as the tonoplast. In the cell wall, we have channels known as plasmodesmata through which the protoplasm of one cell is connected with the protoplasm of an adjacent cell. There are other structures, membrane-bound structures in the cytosol, such as the dictyosomes, that produce substances that are involved in the synthesis of the cell wall, the ribosomes that are involved in protein synthesis, the nucleus that contains the DNA, the nucleolus that produces the compounds used in the synthesis of ribosomes, a channel system, a flat channel system known as the endoplasmic reticulum that has ribosomes attached to it, a chloroplast that is involved in photosynthesis, and other plastids such as the ameloplast that stores starch grains. Between cells there are intercellular spaces that are filled with fluids. This is an electron micrograph of the nucleus of a plant cell. Here you can see the nucleus is surrounded by a double membrane envelope, nuclear envelope. The nucleus contains the DNA that is involved in the genetic expression, the gene expression in the cell, and a dense nucleolus that is involved in the synthesis of ribosomes. Adjacent to this nucleus we have a vacuole surrounded by a thin membrane known as the tonoplast. The plasma lemma or cell membrane, as we see here, surrounds the cytosol of the cell, and it regulates the movement of substances in and out of the cell. The cell has a membrane enclosed interconnected flattened tube system that run throughout the cell. It often appears in two forms, namely the rough endoplasmic reticulum and smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Rough endoplasmic reticulum has small round organelles attached to it known as the ribosomes, and whose function it is to make proteins. The endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, is responsible for protein synthesis and lipid synthesis in the cell. The chloroplast is a membrane-bound organelle involved in photosynthesis, and it contains a system of stacked membranes, as we can see here, known as the grana, that contains the apparatus for light harvesting embedded in the stroma that contains the apparatus for the assimilation of carbon dioxide for the production of carbohydrates. Closely associated with the chloroplast are two other membrane-bound organelles, the mitochondria and the peroxisomes. The mitochondria are involved in respiration, where photosynthates that are produced during photosynthesis are converted to other organic building blocks for the cell, while energy is released to drive the metabolism of the cell. The peroxisomes are involved in the breakdown of fatty acids and in the detoxification of the cell. The chloroplasts contain green pigments known as chlorophyll and yellow or orange or red pigments known as carotenoids that are involved in light harvesting. During senescence and ripening, the internal membrane system of the chloroplast is degraded and chlorophyll is broken down. This leaves a yellow or orange or red colored remnant of the chloroplast known as the chromoplast or gerontoplast. Ameloplasts are membrane-bound organelles found in starch storage tissue. They are colorless plant plastids that form and store starch. And here we see the starch grains in the ameloplast. Another membrane-bound structure found in the cell is the vacuole. The membrane that surrounds it is known as the tonoplast. In mature plant cells, vacuoles tend to be very large due to the fusion of many smaller vacuoles, as can be seen here. As well, the vacuoles are extremely important in providing structural support as well as serving functions such as storage, waste disposal, protection, and growth. The vacuole contains compounds such as water, salts, minerals, and nutrients, proteins, water-soluble pigments, and many other compounds. It also contains hydrolytic enzymes that are involved in the digestion of the cytoplasm during senescence. And here we can see the tonoplast is broken down and pieces of the cytosol is floating in the vacuole where they are digested. The plant cell is surrounded by a cell wall. It provides the cell with structural support, shape, protection, and functions as a selective barrier. It also helps the cell to withstand osmotic pressure and mechanical stress. The composition of the cell wall varies across species, cell type, and cell cycle. The primary cell wall in fruits, vegetables, and cut flowers is generally thin, flexible, and extensible, and it's formed while the cell is growing and comprises polysaccharides like cellulose, hemicelluloses, and pectin. The outermost layer that forms the interface between adjacent plant cells and glues them together is known as the middle lamella. This layer is rich in pectin. The protoplast of adjacent cells are interconnected through gated channels in the cell wall known as plasmodesmata. These channels allow the flow of small molecules such as sugars, amino acids, and ions between the cells. The space located between cells is referred to as an intercellular space. This space is filled with an aqueous fluid. The cell may be considered a membrane system of which the membranes create different compartments inside the cell. These compartments form a variety of subcellular organelles or little organs and serve to compartmentalize the major metabolic activities in the cell. For example, all the metabolic reactions of photosynthesis are located in the chloroplasts and those of respiration in the mitochondria. Protoplasts of adjacent cells are often interconnected with each other by plasmodesmata. The cell walls of adjacent cells are also interconnected. This means that there are two pathways in the plants. The first one is the system of protoplasts which are interconnected with each other through the plasmodesmata. This is known as the symplast. The second one is known as the apoplast. This is the system of cell walls surrounding different cells which are interconnected with each other and can be considered the non-living part of the plant. In part 4 of this series, we will look at the chemical complexity of fruits, vegetables, and cut flowers. For more information on specific commodities, please visit our website at www.postharvestacademy.net.